Why did they abuse me? There are so many answers to this, and I'm going to go back to something I said a few videos ago, which is do not let what you know now change how you felt then. Okay, so for just a moment, I'm going to ask that you show up only as yourself today because I want you today to understand this. When we deal with your inner children, it's a very different situation. Meaning, why did they abuse you? Your parents abused you because they didn't know any better. It's not okay. It's not an excuse. It is trauma. Not only have they shown that trauma, when you're being abused, you are more likely to abuse people because you have no other way. This is how you were taught to treat people. You don't know anything else. The second thing is it is actually in our DNA. Trauma is transferred via DNA without ever having the nurture. So this is where that nature versus nurture. Were you born this way or were you treated so badly that this happened? Trauma is both. I repeat, trauma is both. Trauma is passed down from the mother and from the father. They don't have any studies on humans yet, but they show with mice that virgin mice that are shocked during while they're smelling cherry blossom, their offspring were afraid of the smell of cherry blossom. Having never had a traumatic experience with cherry blossom, the virgin mouse had the trauma. Her offspring had the same fear. They did studies with male mice where male mice were traumatized. Their female offspring have shown depression and isolation in mice. This isn't even humans. So we know that there's enough similarities and we see it in people that this is how we're being affected, right? Our brains go offline. We don't know what to do. We're reacting a certain way. This stuff is in our DNA, you guys. It is not something, it is also learned, but you are born with trauma from both sides of your family from generations. Does it make it okay? Absolutely not. This is not an excuse for your parents to have hurt you in any way, shape, or form. This is simply for you to understand that it wasn't their choice and they weren't even doing it to you. It wasn't you, it was them. They were miserable. They were in whatever state they could to survive. And that meant abusing you. That meant not caring for you in the way you deserved. Yes, it's because their parents didn't do it to them. Yes, it's because of DNA. Yes, they had choices. So I don't want to think that I'm like letting them off the hook with, oh, they couldn't help it. They could help it. Okay. We were all there too. We have made the choice to heal. So just keeping in mind, right, what we know today, it's hard to be an adult if you are traumatized as a child. Most traumatized children end up growing into adults that traumatize and abuse their own children. Many of us have done the same. Hopefully, we did less than our parents did, but it's very likely that we did worse in some senses, right? So we can stop beating ourselves up too for not always behaving perfectly. And knowing that for your inner child, none of this matters. None of it. So, the way that your child experienced, the way you as a child experienced your childhood, experienced the trauma, the pain, the hurt, those experiences, that has nothing to do with this. Okay. Meaning, those parts are still totally valid for their experience. We aren't asking your 9-year-old or your 10-year-old self or even your 18-year-old self to view your parents through this way. That would be unfair to them. This information is for you as an adult to understand. Why? Because it wasn't you. You weren't bad. You weren't wrong. You didn't deserve the way that they treated you. They were acting, and any child, any human that was in front of them was going to receive their abuse dumped on them. It wasn't you. You didn't deserve it. You didn't encourage it. You didn't cause it. They were going to abuse you no matter what you did because they were traumatized. You have chosen to heal. They could have chosen to heal. They did not. So we are honoring your child for the experience that they had, the little you. We are not erasing that with this information, but we are helping you as an adult to understand why they did it and why you may have done it. Okay. This is nothing wrong with you. And there was never anything wrong with you to begin with. This is just the trauma cycle and the ways to get out of it. So this is going to lead just a little bit into generational trauma and how it's a little bit different than what I just talked about.